Dave, it's Bo. I'm responding to your post on Are You Gay? The nature of sexuality and how you label it. I lived in the Persian Gulf for 6 months last year, and a sentiment that I found there that was very interesting and that kind of correlates with what that Argentinian woman was telling you is that for the men in Arab and Persian Gulf states, it's commonly known but not openly talked about that boys are for fun and girls are for babies. And I'm sure the same is true for women as well. In any culture where you have the genders really separated, like you do in a traditional Islamic state, it's very easy for homosexual acts to become rather pervasive and kind of swept under the rug. So I just wanted to share that kind of common thread. Something else you said rather strikingly paired up with experience of my own. When I first went to college, I was in a GLBT group, and I expressed the belief that people, young boys and girls who are molested at a young age, or even in adolescence, by members of the same sex, I think that can condition them to regard themselves as homosexual. And I was told by members of that, by the officers, that I shouldn't say that, because if I said that, it could give credence to the argument that homosexuals recruit. So, you may be flamed for saying that homosexuality is the label we choose, and I was flamed for saying that it's entirely possible to condition people to think that they are gay. The reason I think that is because I haven't done any research, I'll tell you. I was reading this book, you might be familiar with it, My First Time, and it's a series of books about men's first sexual experiences. And the first one they did was very interesting because it was broken up into time periods, and it also gave the age of when it happened. And something I noticed was that before the Stonewall riots, kind of in the 50s and 60s, and before Stonewall, it was much more openly acknowledged in the stories that people were sharing that their first sexual experiences were with people of the same gender. They were with other boys. And it wasn't necessarily sexual acts, but it was actions that young people take to kind of explore their bodies and to get to know how their systems works and all. It wasn't how we would classify sex in our modern post-Clinton world, but how these people characterized their first sexual experiences, and it was often with people of the same gender. And it's funny, after Stonewall, and as homosexuality became more kind of out in the open and more prevalent, and hence the stigma against it became more prevalent, people's first sexual acts, as they were portrayed in the book, and these were true stories, at least that's how the book depicts them, that people sent in. The ages, whereas in the earliest chapters, like the 50s and 60s, people's first experiences were 13 and 14, and this was like masturbation or something like that, or petting. And later in the chapters, the 70s, 80s, and 90s, it was closer to 16, 17, sometimes even 20s and 30s before people had their first sexual experiences. And it wasn't masturbation or anything like that. It was full-on oral and anal copulation. So it's funny how homosexuality, at least what I picked up from this kind of cross-section of 50 years plus of gay first experiences, the battle to really kind of bring homosexuality out into the open has kind of almost pushed it back. But I thought that was rather interesting, and I was explaining all this because what I also noticed is that people's first experiences often correlates with if they have something rather unusual in their first sexual experiences, that translates later in life as a fetish. And so people's first experiences with sex are very, very defining. So that's why I feel that if you're molested by someone of the same gender when you're younger, that can condition you to believe that you are homosexual, and it can train your brain at a very early age to recognize sexual signals and whatnot from people of the same gender. But it was a very interesting blog you did, very thought-provoking, and I want to thank you for doing it. And I hope what I've shared hasn't been too confusing and gives you some food for thought. Bye.